Hello everyone, welcome to the shop here at NTD Racing. My name is Dave. That back there is Honcho, our 1978 Jeep J10 Desert Race truck. And this over here is Lefty. This is our budget trophy truck we're building. And we're transitioning from one phase of the build to the other. First, we started with designing the whole chassis in Bentech underneath that thing. So I had it all assembled. And then now we're transitioning to the fabrication of the chassis and actually the welding portion of this. And anytime I do that, I go through a full shop cleanup, totally make the floors perfectly clean and everything, just so it just helps me kind of think about what I'm gonna do next. And so I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with that body. I don't necessarily wanna put it outside. I thought it'd be some really cool wall art. So what I'm doing today is kind of giving you a little bit of a shop tour, kind of maybe giving you an idea of what I'm all about and where I came from and some of the stuff I have around my shop. And then also getting that body up on the wall. I'm gonna show you some of the stuff I'm gonna use. I'm gonna use a little bit of Fusion 360, cut some parts out on the Langmuir Systems Crossfire XR, so you get to see a little bit of that. And then I'll tell you a couple stories along the way. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at what we plan on doing today, and I'll give you a little bit of a tour around the NTD Racing Fab Shop. Okay, this is kind of a two-part video. Here are the parts for Lefty. We're getting ready to build the roll cage. I gotta get this thing out of the way. I don't wanna leave it outside. And eventually I wanna hang this thing up, kind of like I have these guys' fender up here. I'll be taking that one down. We're taking it to another place. We actually call the cantina. If these guys want their fender, it only costs a little bit of beer. They can come over and have it. And for those of you who know where this fender might come from, I also offer hospitality. All you got to do is bring a little bit of beer. So this will be just a little bit of a shop tour and kind of a plan for how we're going to hang the things up. I'm going to get on to Fusion 360 and we're going to get on the Langmuir Systems Crossfire XR, and we're going to make some parts so that we can hang the hood and the doors and all that stuff up there. And I think it'll be really trick to do that. This will also be a little bit of a shop tour. I don't normally give a tour of the shop and what we got going on in here. Here's Honcho, almost completely race ready to go, looking great in the garage. And then just kind of looking around at just some of the stuff we have in here. I'll talk about some things, maybe not some of the other ones. My niece made this before we did the Baja 1000. It was a gift, kind of homage to our night train roots over here for our team, Bochito. Anyway, hey, this is my wife and I, back when we were much younger, and this was one of the race cars that we built when I was in college. It's a program called Mini Baja. We built that. My wife did all the welding. We ended up winning, beating like 63 other schools in the Baja West 1997. Look it up. Anyway, I have a lot of artwork throughout my garage, and I think it's all things that make me more of a man, more manly, whatever you want to say. Here's my dad, the bad motherfucker. Really good. You've seen him. He's on our team. You can read about him in our team bio. Such a great dude. Survived pancreatic cancer and just hangs out with our team. He is the motivator. It's such a great dude. And here's a picture of me of my little boy. I hope he has half the father that I have as we're hanging out there. Dave Johnson made this after we won our class in Vegas Arena, and he also sent me this trophy, which is completely obnoxious. Anyway, I'll put it up there. I'm not too proud. Here's a flag. One of the drivers on our team, Denny, he flew this for me over Havana, Cuba, and that was super cool. Don't forget to be funny. Anyway, cruising around over here. This is my wife's dad. Al, and he passed a couple years ago. Such a great dude. He was the kind of dad that he would be driving home with his daughter and they would see some trash somebody threw out, maybe half of a big wheel, and the next thing you know, my wife would be driving around as a little kid on the coolest big wheel you've ever seen, with big chopper handlebars that he made and a trailer and all those kinds of things. Just a great dude. Again, trying to live up to his legacy. And also it gets me in a lot of trouble too. Every time I build something and my wife's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Your dad would love this." And she's like, "Yeah, he would." Anyway, love surfing. Here's a picture of, this is our view out our window when we lived in Okinawa, Japan, when I was in the Air Force. So that's what we saw out there. All right, let's continue this tour around Honcho. We got a lemonade stand. It's pretty cool. Anyway, don't be a hater. Don't be a hater. You know that I love my gas engines. I got more V8s than I probably know what to do with. I got a lot of that, but I would tell you that this has got to be one of the funnest cars to drive. Smallest motor, smallest battery that they make, slowest Tesla they make. and it rips. It is such a fun vehicle to drive. Anyway, all kinds of parts back here that we take with us, parts for Lefty and all that kind of stuff. This right here, somebody made this for me. My dad got it made. And this is the jet that I flew when I lived in England. Such a cool jet. That thing was amazing, so much power. They used to say, in my left hand, I hold more power than 2 times the starting lineup in the Indy 500. And in my right hand, I have enough firepower to change world politics. This over here is my grandparents. These people were awesome. Grandma lived to 101, Grandpa lived to 97. And Grandma was the toughest person you've ever met. There's some great stories about her at 98. She was climbing up on her roof to fix a leak. And then my grandpa used to work in the steel mills back World War II. They called him Double Out Frank. He would work endless shifts. Toughest man, big, huge, strong hands. Love that guy. This dude, everyone knows who he is. He's hilarious. I just love that picture. Anyway, cruising over here, my boys, my little 8-year-old stash of electric stuff. He's got a scooter. And then this 4-wheeler we built. I got a whole video on that. Check it out in our playlist. This thing rips. He built the whole thing. I put the electric on, and that was such a fun job there. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look back in the fab shop. And this is a total mess. There's a lot going on back in here. Bentech, I've been making a lot of videos with those guys. I tell you what, I love Bentech and all their stuff. I'm from New Mexico, the land of enchantment. Anyway, this is a banner that my wife made when I came back from Afghanistan, and I was there when my little boy was born, and they had this as I got off the airplane. First time I saw him, he was 3 months old. That was probably the best day of my life. Anyway, this is gonna be the engine for Lefty, still doing the wiring, probably gonna cam this thing. Here's the axle. We're gonna go ahead and put a spool in here, 538 gears. And then here is the Lefty roll cage. If you watch my last couple of videos, we basically cut all these out at Bentech, 115 individual tubes. I don't know, that's like 500 welds or something like that, maybe a mile of welding. I'm making stuff up. These guys, Easy Rider, got us into so much trouble. A lot of bad ideas came from watching that movie years ago. I have a lot of tools in here, and and none of them are like really expensive tools. They're purpose tools. They do a good job. The press brake, we're going to be using that as we continue making parts today. This roller is really cool. Haven't used it a whole bunch. However, the Bentech software does have the capacity to calculate a rolled tube, something with this massive radius. You can do that in Bentech, and we'll probably be using that maybe when we build our next truck. Who knows what that'll be. This is my metal rack, and it is a total mess. And what I'm thinking about doing is I have some scrap 4x4. I might make a whole new base and make something that looks a little bit more like a A-frame type of thing, so everything's leaning towards the center, because this is just a mess. I got to get to it, but this is probably a week-long project just to fix this hole, whatever is going on over here. Again, I've been talking about this thing for a long time. We still have the exact same blade in here that cut every tube for Honcho. And if you don't have a bandsaw like this, then get one. It is the best tool that I've ever purchased as far as being able to cut tubes and that kind of stuff, besides a plasma cutter. Just an amazing tool over here. Old drill press. You never underestimate the value of a drill press. Keep burning through whatever these things are. The 6L90 transmissions, I got these things all over the place now. I think we melted this one down. It saw, I think, 270 degrees at Vegas Reno, kept running. So we will be doing some work on this one. I'll probably replace some of the internals, but I'll get to that. I do some woodwork here. This dude, you've probably seen him in a lot of my videos. Who is this guy? His name is Wesley Autry. He's known as the Subway Superhero. And I will tell you what, this is the guy that, so the story is he's at the subway waiting for the train with his daughters. A guy next to him has a seizure, falls on the tracks. This guy jumps down on the tracks, takes the guy, turns his body sideways, tucks his arms, and just as a train goes right over top of both of them, saves the guy's life. This guy, I look at him all the time, and he reminds me, you never know who or when. I was in the military. Doesn't mean military people are heroes. A hero is a person who, at the right time and place, is able to basically suppress their fear and do the right thing at the right time. Wesley Autry is a total hero. Bonus points if you go back and read about that event, and who is it who gave him like $10,000 to say thank you for being a hero. Pretty cool. Maybe you wouldn't have expected it. Anyway, We got our Crossfire XR. Again, there's links in the description below for the XR or the Pro. I've owned them both, and I think they're amazing tables, and you'll get $100 off if you order one of these things. And then I also get a kickback because I'm an affiliate with them, and we appreciate it because all this other stuff for race trucks is expensive, and you help us pay for those parts, and we do appreciate it. Here's the stand. I had a video on how I redid all of this stuff and reposition the computer and that kind of thing to make it work a little bit better in my shop. Once again, I don't use super expensive stuff. This is my Harbor Freight belt sander. That thing works pretty good, and it takes away some material pretty quickly. This thing is just a really cheesy Delta bench grinder, but I have this attachment. Again, this is, if you look in our description below, you'll find a link to my Amazon page, and I have one of these on there. I have used this, I don't know, I probably spent a year of my life in front of one of these, and it is amazing. It just does a great job, works, and it does what it's supposed to do. Over here, man, everything's a mess. I got to move some stuff out of the way. I probably could have cleaned up my garage a little bit before I showed you this stuff, but this, again, another cool tool, not too expensive. Here is your Harbor Freight little stand that it rolls around on. I've got a pedal here to turn it on and off, and this is just one of your Milwaukee belt or your bandsaws chucked up in the Swag Off-Road. Again, I think I have links for this also on our Amazon page. Check that out if you want one of these. This thing is amazing because you just walk right up, you throw your metal in, hit the pedal, you're cutting right away. You're done with that. Go over here, bam, hit your belt sander, clean it, and everything goes really quickly. This thing is always on the ready to go, and I think it's a really great tool. And besides that, again, Harbor Freight. I'm a big fan of the Harbor Freight. Here's our consumables, all of our nuts and bolts, and these are the ones we take out when we're on the road with Honcho and just bunches of grade 8 bolts. This side over here is my standard, and this side over here is the metric. So there's the tour. I got a bunch of welders and those kinds of things. I've talked about those before, and I will talk about those in the future as we get to welding on Lefty. All the stuff we got like a year of welding I got to do in about 10 months. Anyway, let's go ahead, pull up the program on the computer here, and let's start cutting out the parts that we're going to use to hoist all of those body panels onto the wall.
All right, so now you get to see a little bit of what I do. So I generally, if I have something I do with Fusion 360, I'm going to put a little clip here, but I'll put the full length Fusion 360 mind stream at the very end just so I don't bore anybody with that. But after I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and drop the program into the fire control program and also into the Langmuir Systems Crossfire XR. And I will tell you that there is no better tool as far as rapid production and also saving material. This thing can just nest things so close and just cuts so quickly. It is a total game changer in the shop. Like I said, there's links in the description below. If you click on them, or if you use NTD Racing, when you go to Langmuir Systems, you get $100 off on the Crossfire XR or the Crossfire Pro. And obviously, the advantage of the XR is just that it's a much larger machine. But the results are just amazing on how well these things cut out. From there, it's kind of wash, rinse, repeat. I take the parts, I drop them into a vinegar bath. That breaks down the mill scale. And I just take them over to my sink, and I'm going to use a little bit of a wire brush to wipe off the mill scale. You'll be amazed at how well this works. I've done a whole bunch of videos on how I prepare the metal. From there, I'm going to go and take it into my new magnetic chuck. And I got to send a personal thanks out to Craig Hollabaugh. I hope I said your name right. But you told me to get this magnetic chuck, and it is like the coolest tool I've ever used. It just totally has fixed my problem on how I keep the metal from slinging around, and hit me in the legs or something like that while I'm hitting it with the grinder. So super cool tool. I will put a link in the description for our Amazon store. And Craig, if I ever see you, I owe you a couple beers. If somebody buys one of these, I owe you a couple beers. Anyway, from there, just got to fabricate a couple more parts, drop everything into my bandsaw. Like I said, this thing is amazing. Also on the Amazon store, the price of these things have gone up. You might be able to find one for a better price or find the same one somewhere else, but the value of a bandsaw cannot be underestimated. It is, the fact that, like, when I used to have like one of those carbide blades, and that thing would sling metal everywhere, and those blades were like over $100 each. The blade for my bandsaw was $30, and I've used the same one for like a year and a half now with some intense use. From there, just going to clean all the parts up. After they're cleaned on the belt center, I'm going to take that piece of metal and I'm going to drop it into my press brake. And I will tell you that if you take your 1/8 inch piece of metal, even one that maybe you could bend maybe with your hands, and you drop it into the press brake, you probably triple the strength of that thing, especially buckling strength and those kinds of things. Such an amazing tool, completely underrated when it comes to fabricating. Always better to have a bend and something like that than to try to fuse two pieces together with a weld. But I will try to weld, and let's do some of that. And I TIG weld. This isn't me using my Miller Dynasty TIG welder. And I've been kind of tinkering around. One reason I'm doing this job today is I just want to kind of, just get my muscle movement back with some TIG welding and just kind of using the pedal and doing some pulsing on the pedal. And I think I'm getting it pretty good. I will tell you, I always think that, welders don't need therapists. There's just something about welding. And I don't know, using chainsaws, welding, and backhoe. As soon as you get one, you're like, why did I ever not have those tools? Anyway, so I really like the product. So from there, I rattle can everything. I don't use powder coat on anything. I basically use a rattle can when I paint all my stuff. And then it's time to get this thing up on the wall. And I will tell you that putting these parts up on the wall was I know I'm a pilot, but I have a fear of heights. The ceiling above our lift is 17 feet. So I'm up there trying to do this work. And I have much respect for people who earn a living on a ladder. God bless you guys, because it was a little bit terrifying up there. Anyways, to get all the things up there, and I'm going to maneuver them around a little bit and do some adjusting. I think they'll look really, really trick once they're all painted with Honcho Blue and got all the logos on them up on the wall. But a total nice addition to the garage, and I think it cleans it up, makes it so that I can get on with the next phase of building Lefty.
Well, that's the shop, and that's kind of an idea of the type of things that we do here at NTD Racing. I build race trucks, we build chase trucks, we build everything. Imagine all the stuff that a 10-year-old would want to have, like a speeder and those kinds of things, and that's what we build here. Anyways, check out all the videos I have in our video playlist. There's a lot of cool stuff, something you might like. And I got a whole bunch more stuff to come, so please consider hitting that like and subscribe, ringing the bell for notification of future episodes. And if you leave a comment, it tells YouTube you like what you saw, shows it to more people, definitely helps us out, and we do appreciate it. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care of yourself.
Okay, here we go. We're going to fumble through this real time CME make. It's basically a cleat and something, I guess a pulley type thing. So anyway, we are going to be using Fusion 360, and we will also be fabricating on a plasma table. So what we want to always do is pick this X and Y axis. And in this case, it usually says front. So we'll click on that. And that's going to be the plane that we're going to draw on, because that's also the plane that the Crossfire, Crossfire Pro, Crossfire XR, all those things cut on that axis. The Z is only just the torch head control. So that's what I always do. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I guess I'll just kind of start mocking up the part. I usually like to start and work right off the center for most of the parts that I make. So I'm going to use, as far as like the pulley system, if you will, I'm going to use a 1.5 inch round tube. So let's just make this thing we're going to make here. Let's just go 2.5. I don't know. I'm making numbers up. And then I am going to mount this thing to the wall. And I figure it's going to be, that's 1.25. Let's just go, I don't know, 6 inches up this way. And I don't want to draw this line, so I'm going to make this a construction line. And I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to hit hotkey C, which is going to give me my circle again. I'm going to turn construction lines off because I do want it to make this line. And we're going to say let's make it 1.5, just for round numbers. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a couple more circles here. I'm probably make one right here in the center. And this is where I'm going to put the screws through. I'm just going to call them 0.3. Obviously, it's just a drywall screw, I guess, or a wood screw. But all I want is just to make sure that the head of the screw can't go through that hole. And then I'm going to pick another just point down here. It doesn't really matter where. How about right there? I'll make that a 0.3 also. And then I want to connect these two lines together. So I'm going to just grab this, and I'm going to go from here and make that line tangential. And you can kind of see this constraint right here is this constraint. That just means that this line is now always going to be tangential to this circle. But it's not on this side. So we'll go back in there and do that again. So we'll make that line. That's tangential also. But I want it to be tangential over here. Otherwise, when you cut it, it'll look kind of funky or something like that. So what I'll do is I'll grab this constraint, I'll grab this line, grab that circle, and then now it's tangential. And I'll do the same thing for this one over here, and you'll watch as I kind of click on it, you'll see the line move just a little bit. And then now that line kind of comes in there, and it makes a smooth transition. So that's the part that we're going to make. I don't want it, now here's some lines I don't want it to cut. I don't want the plasma cutter to come around here and cut this because it's going to be a complete part. So I'm going to take those pieces out. And there is basically part number 1 that I want to make. So I'm going to hit hotkey E, which is going to take me out of the sketch over here. And it's going to now make this, in hotkey E is saying I wanted to extrude this part. So I have a sketch right now, and you can see over here, here's my sketches. And I'm going to select this thing. And the part I'm going to make it is out of 1/8 inch or 11 gauge. So it's 0.125 is basically how big I'm going to make that. You can kind of see, if you look over here, which way it's extruding it. If I pull it a little bit more, you can kind of see it opening it up there. So 0.125 is how thick I want that piece. And this is what gets people a lot of the times. Anytime you extrude, and I say this all the time, is make sure that it's doing what you want it to do over here. You want it to make a new body. And this catches people off. Sometimes it'll say cut, and sometimes it'll say join. And in this case, I want it to be a body. And so watch over here. As soon as I say OK, see how it just says sketches and there's no bodies? But as soon as I say OK, we're going to create our first body. And then now the body is there, and there it is right there. So that piece is ready to go. I'm going to make 5 of these. And then now what I want to do, so it's going to have a 1.5 inch round tube right here. And I just want to cap over the end just so that when I want to wrap some string around it, or some 550 cord, and I want to slide off the edge. So let's just go ahead and we'll sketch another sketch. We're going to sketch on that same plane. I'm going to hotkey C, and I just want this to be, let's just call it a 2 inch, that'll be a 1/4 inch on each side. That should be pretty good. A 2 inch circle. And then I'm going to hit hotkey E again. I'm going to select this piece that I want to extrude, and I'm going to say 0.125. It's making a new body, and I have bodies over here. Watch, and I hit OK. Boom, there's my second body, and that is that one. And the last thing that I want to make is the cleat. So I'm going to go ahead. So I'm going to make another sketch. And I'm going to sketch on this plane. As soon as I click on this, it should say sketch right there and bring up a third sketch. So now I got sketch 1, sketch 2, and body 1, body 2, but I don't have body 3 yet. So we're going to make that. So these things are just going to be, I'm making this up as I go. They're going to be some cleats. And let's just go with a rectangle. So I can hit this right here, or you see it says right here, R for hotkey R. So if I just hit R, then, or I click there, then it's going to start letting me make a rectangle. This rectangle is going to be, let's just call it wide. We'll say it's 3 inches wide. I'm making it up. And we'll say tall. We'll say 5 inches tall. Oh, not 35. I'll say 3. I'm going to hit the tab key. And it's going to highlight this over here. Now I'm going to say, now I want that 5. So this is going to be this, basically the footprint of the cleat that we're going to make. Now I just got to take some of the parts out of it. So it's going to, right down the middle will be where I'm going to have, it's going to bend right down the middle. So I'm just going to put a line here just for my own reference there. And then another one in between here, roughly right in there. That's going to be where I'm going to put some screws into the wall again. And I'm going to go from the top. I'm going to say, let's just go 0.75 from the top. Let's come in from the bottom. Hotkey L for the line. And let's go 0.75. And then I'm going to say hotkey C. And again, I wanted to make these. So I'm going to turn these construction lines off. And then right those points I just made, I'm going to say 0.3, which is going to give me that circle. And I'm going to say right here, hotkey C again. And 0.3. There, now there's going to make those two circles. Now let's make the cleat part. So I'm going to put this in my press brake. I'm going to bend it over here. But this part I want it to be, I don't know, I'm making this up, something that looks like a cleat. And it might not look like a cleat at all, but I think it will. So I'm going to, let's just say, let me see here. Let's make a hotkey L. Let's go, I'm going to say escape. Actually, the first thing I want to do is I want to find the center line of this. So hotkey L, construction line. I'm going to go from here to here. I'm going to snap to the center. I'm going to make a center line all the way down here. Now I've made a center line. I'm going to say hotkey L again. I'm going to turn construction lines back off. And let's just say, I'm going to say escape. I'm going to turn construction lines back on. Again, I'm making this up as I go. So if it sounds like I'm fishing for a plan, I kind of am. So let's just go 1.2 and say enter. And then line 1, let's go 1.2. That just gives me a point that I can go to. I'm going to hit hotkey L again, get the line going, turn construction lines off because I do want to cut these. I'm going to snap to there and to there, and then from there to there. And then I'll try the same thing over here. Let's see what happens. And then from here to here. I'm going to try and see if this works. Let's see. I'm going to say I want to soften this line up with something that looks like that. I want to do the same thing over here. And then I want to do the same thing. I'm going to make some, whatever they call these things. There, I want something like that. I'll do the same thing over here. And I'll say enter. And now you can see once I bend that thing over, it'll kind of look like, I think, a little bit like a cleat. There we go. And then I'll do the same thing right here. I'm going to soften that up a little bit. Do the same thing over here. Hit enter. And that way it won't be tearing up the rope in there. And now I'm going to make like kind of a little bowed in area right here. I'm just, let me see. I'm going to say find hotkey L. And I'm going to go from, say, here to the center line there. And then from that point, let's snap to that same point over there. And then I'm going to grab this again. I'm going to say this point and that point, and I'm going to do that. Nope, not that, too far. Boom. Enter. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece right here. And as we look, it looks like it made a little sharp edge. Let me see if I can make that just look a little bit better. There, that looks right. I'm going to do the same thing down over here. There we go. There. And that's what the cleat will look like. So I will put it in my press brake. I'll bend it over there. So this piece will be sitting up and I can wrap the rope around here. There we go. Now I'm going to hit hotkey E again. I'm going to say extrude that. 0.125 is the size it's going to be. And watch over here. Here comes the new body. Boom. And there. Now I've got 3 bodies. Cool. Now I'm going to go ahead and put these into a nest such that I can cut them. So I need to make 5 of them. And I got a couple pieces that I can make, or a couple pieces that of steel I can use. And you know what? You always start with a nice perfect piece of steel, but you never end up with one. So I'm going to go ahead and say sketch again. And I'm going to sketch 2 rectangles. And the first rectangle is going to be, let me see, it's vertical. It's going to be 8.5, and then it's going to be by 14 inches, and I'm going to make that construction lines because I don't want to cut that. And then the second rectangle is going to be, let's do it over here. Oh, there. Okay, now the second rectangle is going to be 15 by 6 inches. So I think I'm going to cut all these right here. So I'm going to take this one, I'm going to put it in this box right here. So I will hit hotkey M for move. I'm going to finish the sketch first. How about that? Hotkey M for move. I'm going to select that. I'm going to turn it onto its side. And then I'll move it over here into that little box. And that's the thing I'll be cutting out. All right. And then I hit enter. I'm going to hit hotkey M again for move. I'm going to select this same piece, move in the body, but this time I'm going to say create a copy. I'm going to copy it, I'm going to move it down, I'm going to flip it over. And then I'm going to move it back into that box. There we go. And usually if I have about 1/4 inch in here, that's good enough for the curve of the plasma cutter. I'm going to say okay, hotkey M again. I'm going to select both of these, create a copy, and then just move it down. And now I got 4 of those. Okay, and then hotkey M again. I'm going to grab this one, create a copy, and there's my 5th one. Boom. I got all 5 of those nested and ready to go. I just got to put that in the manufacturer. Now I'll do 5 of these also. So hotkey M for that. I'm going to put that thing right in there. Enter hotkey M, grab that, make a copy, and just move it over. Enter hotkey, cancel that. Hotkey M, grab both of these. All right, enter, and then hotkey M again, and just grab one of them, create a copy. And I think I got enough material. I think it'll stay inside there. So we'll try and cut that. We'll see. It may go over. We'll see. All right, and then I'm going to make this thing right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and make 3 of these because I think I got 2 different places I got to make these things. 1, hotkey M, create a copy there. Cool. Now it's all ready to go. So now I'm ready to go in there and put these things into the cam portion of the Fusion 360 to cut these things out. So I'm going to go over to manufacture and we're going to go to setup. Let's do these over here first. I'm going to go to select which ones I want. I want these 5. And then I say which box point. Where do I want to basically zero out my machine? I usually always start at the top left of my machine and kind of work down to the bottom of all the sheets that I have. So I'm going to continue doing that. And then for this, I'm going to call this the base plate. Base plate. Okay. And then I'm going to go to cutting. I'm going to select the machine that I want. I use the Razor Weld 45, and there's hate all over the internet for this thing, except for me. I love this thing, man. It's been awesome. I cut with the Hypertherm consumables. I'm going to cut basically at 100 inches per minute. I might lead in at 90 inches per minute, and then I'm going to cut all 5 of those. I'll select those, go across, and all I really need to do here is I'm going to change this to 90 degrees. And then this value you got to be a little bit careful of. You want to make sure that you don't get this value much bigger than the size of your holes. And if you go about half of the size of your hole, remember those are 0.3 holes, so 0.15, that's going to be my lead in. I'm not going to have a lead out, and that should be pretty good. And then as far as like where do I select lead ins and lead outs, I generally will like to do it in a place where maybe you won't see, and then also I like to do it on a radius because that makes it, it always, I don't know. There's guys who do art, maybe do this, and they don't have problems with it, but I find that it always leaves some kind of a little nick in there as it does its lead in. And it's easy to just basically grind that right off on a radius. If you're doing it right over here, it's kind of tougher to get in there with like a belt sander or something like that. And this goes zip, and it comes right off. So I'm going to say okay, and then now it's going to figure this whole thing out and see how it's going to, the tool path for this thing. So we're going to let it figure it out. All right, so there is the tool path. And what you really got to look for is just make sure that it's got all these circles. You see it has an actual tool path, that blue line in there. And then you can go to this simulate button and you can say play and see exactly where it goes. You can slow it down too, so you're not crazy times speed. And you can watch where the torch goes. I even think you can kind of watch the torch doing its thing. That looks pretty cool. Anyway, all right, let's go ahead and complete and just do the same thing on the other ones. Actually, we're going to create some G code, and I'm going to send it to my folder. I'm not doing my Sprinter this time. Let's make a new folder. New folder, garage. Garage. Select that folder and post. All right, now what makes it just a little bit easier when you go back in here now and you do a setup again. So first you got to pick which ones you want. You tell it you want these, and then that makes it easy for the box points. You start here and you work your way up to box point, and then again I pick that top left point. And I'm just going to call this the cleats. If I misspell cleats, don't make fun of me because I'm good at math, not good at spelling. That's probably not the way to spell cleat. In fact, while I look at it, I'm like, that's just totally wrong. But just in case, sometimes there's people that kind of ping about my spelling or grammar, and that's cool. I'm all right with that. Okay, I know what I'm saying, and that's all that's important. So, all right, well, this is kind of cool because when you go to cutting out, since I'm on the same page and same program, it keeps my plasma cutter in there and all the same speed. So it just makes it such that it's a little bit faster to come across and do this the second time. You know what? When I went to do this thing, I didn't soften these edges. They'll be sharp. It'll look okay. It'll still look cool. All right, and then I'm gonna come over here and say 90. That lead in and lead out is fine. And I could you know what? It's going to be weird. I got to do it on a flat edge because anywhere else you really can't get your angle grinder in here or something like that to clean it up. So I'll just say right here, we're going to enter every time. Right there. Just to make sure that your lead in doesn't cut into the other part. I'm going to see if it will move by, you know what? I'm going to take all those out. Let's do those again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right. And then from there, it's just a little bit of just repeating the same process over again. Post the G code. It's going to the same folder. Post that. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. All right, it's time. Let's take this down to the Crossfire XR and do some cutting. I'll give you a little tour of my Crossfire XR.